Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. I'm delighted to introduce you today Gitanjali Rao, who was named Time's First Kid of the Year at the age of 15 in 2020, following her invention of a device that detects lead contamination in water. Now 17, she has been named Forbes 30 under 30 in science, and she is a public speaker. She's also a published author, a UNICEF Youth Advocate, a National Geo Young Explorer, and a Forbes Ignite partner, and she currently lives in Denver with her family. Although the interview I did with her is in audio format, I'm sure you will be as amazed as I was by her journey and her insights. Gitanjali, it's an immense pleasure to have you with us here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about your incredible journey. How did you first discover your passion for innovation and STEM at such a young age?
Yeah, so my passion for innovating in STEM wasn't necessarily one moment that really caused anything to happen. I think it was just like a lead up of ideas that I started to put together. So ever since I was 3 or 4 years old, I would play the piano at assisted livings and hospitals. And I used to say my dream and what I wanted to do in life was to put a smile on people's faces. And that was just something I took to heart every single day of what I did. But at the same time, my uncle got me the science kit, and I started to learn more about science, started to learn more about technology. And by the time I was 7 or 8, started to combine the two. And so then I started saying my dream in life is to use science for kindness, which is exactly what innovation is using science and the applications of science to solve problems. And so since then, I was very fortunate to have found my passion at such a young age. So I continued down that path, coming up with ideas, solving problems, running experiments, going to labs, talking to mentors. And that's what's allowed me to have such a, diverse mindset with a lot of different ideas and ways of thinking.
And what motivated you to start actually developing concrete devices and solutions that solve social and community health problems? And who actually supported you along the way? You mentioned mentors before, or can you tell us about the support you've gotten from your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of my journey actually started with research. I had ideas that I wanted to do. I had questions that I wanted to answer. And slowly when I was in those research labs, for example, the first lab I worked in was the Denver water quality lab. At the age of 11, I started to learn more about it, but soon I started to kind of apply that into physical products and ideas that I thought would help people rather than just questions that I wanted to be answered. So I was looking at lead contamination within the lab itself, but then slowly, after seeing some research about how carbon nanotube sensors were being used to detect for hazardous gases in the air, I wanted to see how I could repurpose that for lead in drinking water, which is exactly what I did. And I was able to get pretty far with that one, build a prototype, and now it's a patented solution as well. But obviously, this isn't something that I worked alone on. The idea was mine. The execution was mine, but I wouldn't have been able to get into that lab without my mentor from Denver water quality. So actually a very powerful female who was in my life and still in my life is Dr. Selene Hernandez Ruiz. She ran the water quality lab and she was kind of my advisor through this project, making sure I was staying safe in the lab, but also such a powerful woman who was involved in STEM as well. And my parents were probably my biggest support system, not because it was like motivation, but in addition to that, at a very young age, I was that kid that you name it, I did it, right? I did everything known to man. But because of that, there was only one deal, and that was try it once. And if you don't like it, you can quit the next day. And I kind of took that forward, realized that that's really what learning should be about, right? Letting students carve their own path. So the reason I know my passion at such a young age is because I was exposed to a lot at such a young age and was able to carve out what exactly I wanted to do. Like I couldn't play football to save my life, but I loved fencing. And I loved playing the piano, but I didn't like playing the saxophone, for example. So that kind of exposure is something that I hope every young student gets the opportunity to do.
You recently launched an anti-cyber bullying service based on AI machine learning. What what motivated you to pursue this project?
Well, obviously, cyberbullying is still a problem that happens in today's day and age. I moved to 7 different schools in the past 11 or now 12 years of my schooling life. And every new school I moved to, it's a new set of people who are the bullies and new set of people who are being bullied. I experienced it firsthand. I had friends who had experienced it firsthand. And sometimes speaking up is never enough. Right? You can't speak up because it doesn't work. And so I wanted to create a mechanism that was self-driven to help students recognize what they're doing is wrong. And so I like to call it Kindly. And it's essentially the spell check of cyberbullying. It doesn't stop you from sending anything, but it makes you aware of what you're sending. And it's leveraged off of research that says it only takes 7 seconds for a teenager to want to unsend something that they sent.
So when you're creating and innovating and coming up with all these brilliant ideas, various challenges come along the way. Can you share with us a difficult moment that you have faced and that you've actually managed to overcome? And as you said, it's either in the discovery process or either in the implementation process. Tell us more a little bit about some of the struggles that you have faced, but that you overcame them and still brought great ideas to life.
Yeah, so quite a few challenges. I think the biggest one I can kind of bring up is not being taken seriously for my age. And it's a very common problem, especially with young innovators, is it was really hard for me to get into a lab. It was really hard for me to get my ideas taken seriously. It was really hard for me to have people recognize the potential in them just because of the way I looked and how old I was. And that was very, very discouraging for me as an 11 or 12-year-old who was coming up with ideas and maybe not incredibly feasible ideas, but just wanted help or wanted to ask questions and wasn't able to do that because nobody took her work seriously. And on top of that, there were challenges across the entire path, right? I had to learn how to code for the first time. I had to learn concepts about carbon nanotube sensors, right? And a lot of that was self-driven motivation. I was taking courses outside of school about these topics that I was passionate about, and I was trying to kind of keep that positive mentality in mind that you didn't need to know the world's information about computer science or chemistry. You just needed to know what you're specializing in and what your work is in.
You've been recognized as a Time Top Innovator and Forbes 30 Under 30 in Science, among other amazing accolades. How do these achievements contribute to your sense of joy? And how do you balance the demands and responsibilities that come with your achievements?
I'm absolutely honored to have all of these recognitions behind me. And I think that's one of my biggest motivating factors for continuing to do what I do. I think a big part of it is recognition has never been important to me. Recognition was always a side factor of the true work that I'm doing. Really where I feel the most joy and feel like I've committed the most is when I'm out there on the front lines doing the work, right? In the lab working, in a refugee camp, running workshops, right? Something like that. That's exactly what I want to do and what I love doing. And the recognition, while it's incredible, it's added motivation for me to keep doing what I do. That people love this, people want to see more of this, right? They're willing to support people. And more important than that, grants, support, funding, whether it's for me or the people that I work with or the students that I'm trying to impact. That's really what I go forward with as well. I think the big thing is it took me a while to understand how to learn to say no. One of my biggest mentors, her name is Dr. Sabeti. She works at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. And I had the pleasure of working in her lab for about 6 weeks last summer. And hopefully we'll be doing undergraduate research there as well in the next couple of weeks before I start college. But she is actually one of the main people who told me that it was okay to say no and really did encourage me to kind of find that within myself as well. I am a very motivated person, which means I want to do everything, every interview, every media request, every show, all of them. But at the end of the day, I kind of lost touch, and I have come back to that now. I lost touch of why I do what I do, right? To help people, to impact people, to continue my own path and figure out what I want to do in life. The second you get caught up in the media, it's so hard to get your feet back to the ground. And that's really what I had to teach myself, is recognizing that, hey, you're 13, you have media attention, but on top of that, you have the time to learn and grow as an individual. So take advantage of that. And so that's really what I try and spend my time doing, is putting my work first, putting my passion first, and letting the recognition follow.
And do you find time among all these activities and travel and media attention that you're getting to actually find joy in small moments and small pleasures? As you're saying, you play the piano. Do you actually even get the chance to play the piano as much as you did when you were younger? Tell us more about that.
I actually have the chance to play more piano. I practice for about an hour a day and I'm no longer trained in it. So it's just something that I've chosen to do for fun. And that's also something I try not to lose touch of is, yes, I do the work. Yes, I do what I'm passionate about. But what makes me a well-rounded individual is everything that I love doing. And so I try and split up my days in which I'm able to hang out with my friends, play the piano, right? I just got my pilot's license last weekend. And so hopefully go up in my plane once in a while. So things like that, I've learned to kind of find the joy and recognize how incredibly important it is.
You know, I'm a pilot myself, purely for pleasure, and it's one of great sources of joy whenever I'm up in the skies. It's really incredible. How did you actually get into piloting? I'm super curious.
Yeah, so I actually don't have my certification for engine planes. I fly gliders. And so that's my next step here is engine planes. My dad is a private pilot, again, purely for pleasure. And so it's kind of common knowledge for my brother and I. It's once you turn 13, you start going to flight school. And so I loved it. I thought it was incredible. It was just brand new to me. And I love gliders and I fell in love with them. I thought I was just going to fly in one once and then work on my engine. And I loved it. I thought it was gorgeous. And it's a little bit of apprehension to it because you have no engine. So you have no room to mess up. But it's so fun. And I just got my license, took my practical and did my flying like 2 days ago. And that went incredibly. And so now I have my license. And yeah, definitely will continue with that for years to come.
You're on the board of directors for an organization called Children's Kindness Network. Tell us more about why you believe educating kids about kindness is important.
So the Children's Kindness Network is a nonprofit organization that focuses on how we're going to tell kids about kindness in a fun, interactive way with their mascot named Lucy the cow. I was involved with the Children's Kindness Network since I was 8 years old and became a board of directors when I was 13. And so it's something that I've spent basically my entire life doing. And it is absolutely incredible. I think a big part of why I do what I do is kindness, is empathy. In all my speeches, all my interviews, I say the driving force for what I do is empathy, right? Putting myself in other people's shoes. And I truly want to bring about a movement where everyone sees that. We're living in a day and age, especially in the United States, where kindness and peace isn't practiced all around, right? You watch the news and there's another mass school shooting or something of a similar sort. And coming from a school that did have a school shooting while I was still at the school, that was something that was incredibly important to me, right? Is finding ways to kind of create a level playing field for everyone and to kind of recognize what the importance of kindness is. One of the Children's Kindness Network's biggest values, and one of my values that I've stuck with, is that kindness should be taught in schools just like math, language arts, science, and social studies, right? It should be instilled in every student, right? It should bring a new value to them.
So do you actually believe that kindness and empathy are two key factors that can create a more joyful world?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that those are the root factors, right? And there's a lot that you can do with that. You know, for me, I look at empathy as solving problems that I'm passionate about, which contributes to creating a better world as well. For other people, they look at empathy as doing tiny things and random acts of kindness, which creates a more positive environment, right? It's really your spin on it, but kindness and empathy are the root ideas of what makes a better, more creative and more driven world.
As a mentor and advocate, how do you guide young innovators who are interested in AI-related fields? And what advice do you have for them as they navigate the evolving landscape of AI technologies?
The world of AI makes people very scared in what we think right now, just because the best way I like to put this is there were articles written hundreds and hundreds of years ago where people thought that the calculator was like a devil's tool. Right? They were terrified of it. They thought it shouldn't exist. Now there's calculators all around our house and we're like, oh, this is like common knowledge at this point. But really, the way I like to put it is that tools like AI are always going to have apprehension in the beginning, but there's always going to be ways to combat any mistakes that may happen. The biggest thing is that we always, as humans and as researchers, stay ahead of technology smoothly, and no one's necessarily abusing it, right? That's essentially what comes with AI. Now, I think the potential for AI is far beyond what we could even imagine. I'm specifically going into bioengineering, and that's what's going to change the world, right? Looking at personalized treatment, protein folding, right? All utilizing computer technologies, parsing huge amounts of data and analyzing it. Personalized vaccines, adaptable ones, new viruses as well. That's a lot of what AI is going to do. But in the long run, it's even more important, right? It's going to not necessarily replace, but add to our healthcare professionals, add to the law ideas, right? And we're already seeing ChatGPT and tools, you tell it to write a piece of code and it writes it for you, right? It's helping our computer engineers as well. I think the power of AI is definitely there. I think it's just about how we utilize it and how we carry it forward. It's going to absolutely change the world. It already is changing the world.
You're also a UNICEF Youth Advocate. And I'm curious as to whether you can share a story that illustrates how joy has played a role in making your advocacy role more impactful, especially when dealing with serious global issues.
I was named a UNICEF Youth Advocate about a year and a half ago now, and I've loved every moment of it. I represent the United States, and specifically within the areas of contamination of our natural resources and quality education and online hate and online peace. Really, I guess the biggest story that I can kind of bring about is the work that I do with the refugee camps in Kenya. And not necessarily through UNICEF, but very, very much supported by UNICEF. I've looked to donate, I've fundraised about $91,000 to donate books, iPads, furniture, bathrooms, resources to a refugee camp in Kenya, specifically the Kakuma Vocational Center. And these students are incredible. And the best way I like to explain it is they are bursting with ideas. At any given point in time, they're looking to change the world. They just don't have the resources. And the best part about this is they're the happiest students I've ever met, right? Truly the happiest, most unique, most driven, most creative, most open-minded. There is a huge language barrier there. I don't speak Swahili. They don't know too much English. But even with what we do know, you can see their joy exhibited when they explain their ideas or when they tell me about what they want to do. And I've worked with all those students, despite the language barrier, to apply to competitions and to build their ideas forward and see if they can receive funding on it as well. A lot of them have been shortlisted for kindness essay contests and a lot more. And it's really, really intriguing to see how these students' joy and passion really fills up the camp around them. And all they need is a little push, a few resources, a few ways to bring their ideas to life. And so in partnership with UNICEF, I was essentially able to travel out there, work with these students and run workshops and see them firsthand, but I still work with them online and talk to their leaders almost every day and see ways in which I can support them.
You're also a National Geographic Young Explorer. Tell us more about that and your spirit of exploration and discovery.
Yeah, so National Geographic Young Explorer program is incredible. National Geographic Explorers have been around for a while. It's this idea of people who go around, take pictures, photograph new moments. I love it. Maybe it's something I'll do one day as well. But the Young Explorers program is actually kind of driven through a grant, right? It supports students and their ideas in ways in which they want to solve problems. And so I actually applied for this grant with the initial intent of $5,000 to see what I can do to help out these camps and local areas near me. And through that, I received the grant. And from there, I was able to donate that money and go forward with the refugee camp as well and take those next steps. But along with that, kind of it instilled that value in me of exploration and adventure, a lot of which National Geographic tries to put out there. I'm always traveling, but I always take it upon myself to go see new things, right? If I'm in a country for less than 12 hours, you already know I'm sightseeing for the first 6 until my speech. And my parents were big on traveling ever since my brother and I were very little. But, being able to have that recognition behind me also kind of instills that same value.
And what have been some of the most amazing countries that have really awakened a sense of awe within you?
I loved Kenya. That was a big thing for me. But even beyond that, Japan is a big one. I've been a couple times and I've loved it every time. And I think one of my favorites was probably Cambodia and Thailand. Those are huge places that I love as well.
We share the same the same likes from a country perspective.
Yay! I'm glad.
You're also a Forbes Ignite partner and are now piloting a concept called Empathy Shark Tank that helps employer engagement for startups and schools. Can you share more with us about that pilot and that?
Yeah. So actually, the initial pilot is already complete for Empathy Shark Tank. We did it in the middle of COVID, and it was incredible. So Empathy Shark Tank is this idea that I had come up with initially in partnership with Forbes Ignite, in which it was a new way of just doing team exercises, because I know how much people hate that. And so within our school, what we wanted to do is pilot this Empathy Shark Tank. So I had teachers on Zoom, because we didn't have an option, to essentially tell each other about each other and then create presentations for the opposite person and share it with everyone. And that's the way I like to put it, is Empathy Shark Tank. And then other people can ask questions about the people. And it kind of creates this idea of you need to understand everything about the other person to present them. And it creates this new idea of putting yourself in their shoes. And typically what I did was match up people who have never met before, the music teacher from second grade, the social studies teacher in 10th grade. In which context would they have ever interacted if it wasn't for this? But they worked at the same school. And so that's exactly what the goal of Empathy Shark Tank was. And it was great. We had cookies, we had swag. It was a great experience. But in addition to that, I'm actually continuously working with Forbes Ignite now, and just recently launched a youth AI workshop. And so for business professionals and executives, I'll be running a workshop about artificial intelligence and the power that it has in the real world, and how to harness the ingenuity that AI brings from a youth perspective, and how to come up with new creative ideas, and how to involve AI in your technology plans. And so I'm running that workshop as well, as and when based on demand. And so I'm excited to do that alongside Forbes Ignite. I think it'll be a good experience and a very timely one.
And so for young generations that are looking to actually embrace more openly AI, what advice would you give them?
I think for young generations, the biggest piece of advice I would say is don't fear what's already out there, but utilize it for the better, right? Invention and innovation is different. So don't feel like you need to build a new theory or create something brand new or be the next Albert Einstein, right? Leverage off of existing technologies. AI is going to change the world by itself, but if you take that and make something out of it, it's going to change the world even more.
When I look at all your accomplishments beyond the world of science and now also connecting the dots with AI, you're also an incredible writer and artist and have won several awards. Your art is displayed at Nashville International Airport. You published your first book at the age of 9. And you're also a time of, for kids, a kid reporter in 2018. So looking back at your incredible journey so far, which milestones or moments stand out as the most joyful and significant for you?
That's really hard to pick one, because I think every single one had its own impact in the way that I thought and the way that I created. I never believed in this idea of using only your left brain and your right brain. I love drawing. You will always catch me drawing or writing or doing something creative. At the same time, I'm doing hardcore research, and I think that's how it truly should be. But a big part of really what defined my childhood was those aviation art contests. Also got me into aviation. I was drawing all the time, kind of with new themes, was connecting the air with earth, talking about nature and how that relates to airplanes. And so those art contests really did define who I was, and it really did motivate me. I won, I think it was like first, second, first, something like that, like over the years. And every time I won, they would take me out to a hangar in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee, where I lived, and they would take me up in a Cessna and come back down as my prize. And I loved it. Best experience of my life. And I looked forward to this competition every single year. My brother started doing it as well. And he's a significantly better artist than I am, significantly. And he's just turned 11 like 2 days ago. And he loves it. I think it really proves to show that you can't just stick with one thing. There's passion and then there's drive. And so I try and combine the two. I'm majoring in bioengineering in college, but I'll be minoring in public policy. And I think that's how it should be.
So tell us actually more about your upcoming activities in college and your pursuit in terms of studies. Can you share with us more details on your aspirations?
I actually leave for college a week from today. I'm heading to MIT, majoring in bioengineering and minoring in public policy. I'm very excited for it. But at the same time, I want to be on the fencing team. I want to be in orchestra. I want to join maybe a debate club. up. I want to join a dance club, maybe. I have so many things I want to do in college. Maybe rush for a sorority. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what college should be, exploration. But at the same time, I do ideally want to start up a company, a biotech company, or kind of bring a new name to females in biotech. It hasn't been going too well for us lately. But I do want to kind of talk about opportunities that biotech brings, but in a very different manner than people might think. My passion lies in genetics. That's truly what I want to do and hopefully specialize in the future. But at the same time, I want to focus on the intersection of genetics and AI to solve sustainability-based issues. So an environmental approach to it. We'll see how that goes as well. But in addition to kind of the research aspect and the work aspect, I do want to start up workshops and maker spaces in schools in places like Kenya to kind of really bridge that education inequality gap and give students the opportunities that they weren't able to have growing up as well. And then I want to kind of recruit youth innovation advocates from across the country who can run these workshops, go to places and kind of take that same motivation that I have and carry it forward. So yeah, that I have a lot of plans, a lot of ideas, but we'll see. Slow and steady wins the race.
I certainly wish you the continued success. It sounds absolutely amazing. So as you have found your path and you're very clear on where you aspire to go next, some people your age are still struggling to actually even decide which studies to pursue, what career paths to pursue. What advice would you give to younger people who are searching for their passion, searching for their purpose, and even searching for what studies to actually pursue? And how do we ensure that in the process, they also find joy in these pursuits?
My biggest piece of advice is you don't wake up one day and find your passion, and it never will be like that. And the world paints it like it's like that, but it's not. My biggest piece of advice is take the time to learn about everything before you choose one. No one's making you choose a passion right here, right now. So take the time to breathe, take a couple steps and recognize what you truly want to do and what you truly want to carry forward with you. And it's important to remember that no one can define your passion but yourself, whether that's your parents, your friends, your teachers, your mentors, anyone around you, right? Only you know what your true passion is. And so think about what you want to do. Someone told me, I forgot who, but someone very important told me that a passion is if you quit something and you wake up the next day, you miss it. That's what a passion is. And that's what, hopefully carry that with you and see what that means to you.
And as you continue to pursue your passions, what legacy of joy and positivity do you hope to leave behind in the communities and the people you have touched?
I think the biggest thing that I hope to leave behind is a sense of responsibility. To recognize that everyone has place on this earth, right? Everyone has a role to play, whether it's something big or something small. So kind of do that. Take that upon yourself to see who you can help, what next generation problem you're able to solve, and what you could do to impact the world. I think that's really the message that I hope to leave with everyone. Is if we live in this world where we typically sit around and wait for someone else to do it, but don't, right? Take that first step, because if you don't do it, no one else will.
And are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners about finding and nurturing joy in their own endeavors and lives?
I think a big one is take risks. Joy and risk sound very, very contrasting, but they work very well together. Take the risk no matter how big or small the reward is, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the risk that I took across the way.
And a final question about your parents. You mentioned that your father is a pilot in his leisure time. Is there anything you can share about the world they navigate in? Are they also very focused on the science world and technology and AI as you are, or they're in completely different fields?
They both actually work in IT and business. And so they're in, I wouldn't say completely different fields because everything works hand in hand, but they're in pretty different fields. So they don't know too much about the whole research, biology, sit in the lab and do things concept.
Any fun facts you'd like to share with us? I know you've shared so much about your life and your journeys and your innovations. Any other fun facts that you'd like to share with the audience about yourself?
I'm probably the biggest Taylor Swift fan you'll ever meet. That's probably my fun fact.
All right, wonderful. So on that note, Gitanjali, thank you so much for your time. It's been a true inspiration to talk to you today. And I wish you immense success moving forward with everything that you have coming up in the short term and also in the long term.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.